How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your April 2019 horoscope for Leo, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. Let's go ahead and cut to the chase with what's going on. I wasn't able to do my last month's horoscope, so I didn't get a chance to talk about Venus going into Pisces later on in March, and as well as Mars going into Gemini in March. Venus is going to be in Pisces for the majority of April, and Mars is going to be in Gemini all of April, so I wanted to hit on those first. Venus left Aquarius, now is going to go into Pisces. It's been in Pisces now for, by the time, April kicks around, I don't know how long it'll be in there, but for a little while. Venus is now going from your 7th house into your 8th house, and Venus is this planet of love and relationships. She wants to bring things together and connect them. She wants to express beauty. She wants to spend money and things like that. And Venus is going into her sign of exaltation. She's going into one of her favorite signs, and that's Pisces. She doesn't have any boundaries of how she can express herself. She can do whatever the hell she wants when she wants. Now, the only thing is she's going to be going into your 8th house, and this is going to be an interesting thing. The 8th house it's a hidden house. It's an aversion to the ascendant, meaning it's not visible. The 8th house is all about, taxes, inheritances, other people's money. More specifically, if you're with a partner, it represents their money. It also rules, like if you've got a loan out in banks, rules death and things like that, and change and transformation. And as Venus goes through your 8th house, it's going to be a weird time because Venus is going to be able to bring a lot of good things to you in this way. So maybe that's, some type of inheritance, or your partner's money's doing well. Venus going through this area is going to be a little bit more positive than usual. However, as Venus goes through Pisces, through your 8th house, this is going to be a time of kind of like really looking at what does change look like for you. And if you're going to be going through change, which way do you want to go about it? What's going to be the fun, most expressive way to do it? You're a Leo rising, You've got to, I'm not saying you've always got to do it big and bold, but go through it the way that you want to and change the way that you see fit in that moment. Now, the other thing that's going on is on March 31st, we have Mars entering Gemini, where Mars is now going to be in your 11th house. Now, Mars is a planet of action and energy and drive and, ambition. Mars is also this hot and dry planet. It rules anger and frustrations. Mars is going to be in the sign of Gemini, where it splits things into two, and it wants to understand things in a very mercurial level. It wants to basically get the idea and get the picture straight. Mars in Gemini wants to kind of spread what it's doing and do not just one thing. It can't just focus on one thing. It's got to do multiple things. It's got to multitask. Now, as we have Mars going through your 11th house, I would definitely expect maybe a little bit of more problems and some irritations going on with your friend groups, but you may be finding yourself in more diverse friend groups, or, taking your time and spending time with this area of people, or spending this time with this type of people. It's definitely not going to, your friends or your groups and your networks may take up some more energy at this time. You may be very distracted with them as well. So keep that in mind as we go out through the month. Now, to go on to April, the first big thing that's happening is on April 5th, we have the new moon in Aries. Now, we're going to be talking a lot about Aries stuff because this is your 9th house. The 9th house is all about spirituality, philosophy, far distance travel, foreign languages, publishing, higher education like college and things like that. And so we're about to have this new moon on April 5th in your 9th house, and this is also in Aries. Aries represents things like identity and how we address things, how we initiate things. Aries has to deal with, conflict. Aries has to deal with, I've been loving using this word initiate lately for it, because I like to use the word confrontation too, but that can sometimes sound a little bit too antagonistic with it, because it's not about being antagonistic. But when you have a new moon, you have two luminaries in the same sign. They're kind of focusing all the attention and the light on one area. And this is happening in your 9th house, and I really think that this is about addressing your internal beliefs about yourself. How your 9th house works. Your beliefs. This is Aries. It's about being resilient. Being strong in your nature and things like that. And I think this new moon is just going to be a big time to reset the energy of what your beliefs are about yourself and what you're capable of doing, what you're worthy of doing, what is possible for you to even believe about yourself, and going beyond the beliefs that you have right now and making them even better. So that is going to be important. But then the next big thing that we've got going on is on April 10th, we're going to have Jupiter stationing retrograde. So Jupiter has been in Sagittarius in your 5th house now for a couple months. Jupiter, this planet of expansion, optimism, our beliefs, our sense of spirituality, our sense of, philosophy, what we have faith in, what we really believe in. And Jupiter's now in its home sign of Sagittarius, where it has a vision that it's holding on to. It sees something very clear and it wants to expand on that vision. It wants to believe it and wants to, give the fire, the dwindling fire, more air to, put more oxygen into it. And now Jupiter's going through your 5th house of love and romance, children, sex, art, music, creativity, the fun stuff. As Jupiter stations retrograde, this is going to be a time of where, Jupiter's been giving you some ideas and showing you some opportunities in this area. And as Jupiter retrogrades, this is about reflecting on what Jupiter has been bringing to you or what you want Jupiter to bring to you. And I think this is really going to be a time of not necessarily isolation, but really sitting, if this is about your craft, if you're a musician or an artist of some sort, this is really going to be reflecting on what do you want that to look like and what does that vision really look like. If you have children and you're wanting to be, either a better parent or you want to have a better kid or whatever, what does that look like? What do you have to teach them? What do you have to learn? And I think that's going to be the most important thing about Jupiter retrograding, because it will retrograde for the next couple months. It doesn't go direct until about middle of August. So I really think that's what Jupiter's retrograde is really going to start reflecting. But that happens on April 10th. The next big thing that we've got going on is on April 16th, we have Mercury leaving shadow and entering Aries. So Mercury's been retrograde in Pisces for quite some time now. Mercury is in its detriment sign of Pisces, doesn't operate well there. It was in your 8th house of other people's money and finances and death and things like that. So that was probably a really hectic Mercury retrograde for you guys. However, as Mercury then leaves shadow, it moves straight into Aries all at the same time. And so Mercury is now going to be going into your 9th house. And again, the 9th house is about your beliefs. So, what do you believe? Where do you want to grow? Where do you want to learn? What do you want to explore? How are you doing those things? How does that look like for you in your life and played out in practice? And so Mercury is this planet of messages. It's the messenger. It speaks in messages. It's all about communicating. It's all about, our mindset and our ideas around certain things. Mercury is just basically laying out the facts, is a good way to put it. And as Mercury goes through Aries, things are definitely going to be addressed in a lot more blunt way, a lot more, Aries way of this is what I'm saying and I'm saying it now and you've got to take it this way. Not saying, you're going to go overboard being negative or aggressive, but Mercury's very blunt with how it speaks when it's in Aries. And you're going to find this happening in your 9th house, where I really think a lot of your ideas, a lot of what your faith or your beliefs are, or if you're in college or things like that, a lot of things are going to start being communicated in a very blunt way. And if you're, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're a spiritual person, expect for that sense of spirituality, expect for those philosophical type aspects that involve your life to be a lot more blunt, communicated in a lot more blunt way. And it's just Mercury. Mercury's just the messenger. Is really the best way to put it. Don't shoot the messenger. It's just kind of what's going on in that area for you. Now, the next big thing that we've got going on is on April 19th, we have the 2nd full moon in Libra. And I've been saying this in all my horoscopes. It's not a big deal that there's 2 full moons in Libra, but what I do think is a big deal is that it's highlighting this axis in your chart one more time than usual. So we had the new moon in Aries, now we're going to have the 2nd full moon in Libra. And so we still have the sun in Aries. Now this, kind of like what I was saying with this new moon in Aries, it's kind of re-identifying what your beliefs are about yourself and what you're capable of. The full moon is now highlighting what you need to learn in order to have those beliefs. This full moon is going to be happening in your 3rd house of communication, writing, speaking, siblings, as well as, neighbors and things like that. The 3rd house is also how you utilize yourself. The 1st house is who you are, 2nd house is what you got, 3rd house is how you use it. The third house also has to do with, teachings and, being a teacher or learning. And so I really think with the Sun and Aries stuff, where you guys are really focusing on how you're addressing your beliefs about yourself, this full moon in Libra is looking at, well, what do you need to learn and how do you need to bring that together? Where do you need to delegate, not only how you communicate, how you express yourself, how you work with other people, but like, how are you bringing things together? How are you bringing what you've learned together, and what do you need to learn? And I think that's going to be really important since we're getting hit with two of those. Now, the next thing after that, on the next day, on 420, we have the Sun going into Taurus, where it's now going to be going into your 10th house. A lot of the focus for, Aries season has been about your beliefs and your identity in that way. The Sun's going to be going into Taurus, where things are going to be fixated in spring, and it's happening in your 10th house of your career, public vocation, your public image, and how, the rest of the world sees you in a sense. And as the Sun goes through here, you're probably going to be experiencing a little bit more energy and draw into your career, into, how people view you or see you. Maybe that's doing something in the public, or if you work on social media, or if you work, maybe more just focus on your career ambitions. Now, the other thing that's going on April 20th is we have Venus going into Aries. Venus is leaving your nasty 8th house, going into a better situation, into the 9th house, but it's leaving its sign of exaltation and it's going into its sign of detriment, meaning Venus doesn't really do Venus things in Aries. Venus does Mars things in Aries, and it's kind of interesting to see. Now, Mars, Aries stuff, again, addressing, initiating, attacking, combativeness, things like that, and those are hardcore words to kind of describe Aries stuff, but Venus going through here is kind of like, Venus, again, she's about connecting and bringing things together. She's about value and expressing that stuff. And as she's in Aries, she's going to be very much like, this is what I'm expressing, and this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I value, and that's what I'm addressing, is the things that I value and the things that I care about. And as it goes through your 9th house, this is about, again, your beliefs. If you want to travel, if you want to learn something, you're going to feel a lot more engaged to go in that direction this month. And I think that's what's going to be the most important thing about Venus being in Aries. Now, as we move on, the next big thing that we've got is on April 22nd, we have the Sun conjoining Uranus in Taurus. And this is happening in your 10th house. Now, Uranus is now locked into your 10th house. It's going to be there for about 7 years. The Sun going on top of it, like I just wrote this in here because I really think on this day, if you haven't seen what exactly Uranus is going to be doing to your chart or what it's doing to your life, expect some type of, up or down in your career, or some exciting news, or some back and forth, up and down, unexpected Uranus stuff to happen. And I would definitely say, expect for this Uranus stuff to be a lot more clear moving forward after this day. And then the last couple things we have is on on April 26th, we have Mars squaring Neptune. Now, Neptune's in a really funky place for you guys because it's in your 8th house, where Neptune is this planet of illusion and this planet of, duality, and, it's about spirituality, and it's kind of blurring everything in your 8th house. The 8th house is already a hard house to see what is going on in there. So the Neptune's not making that any easier, but as Mars is in your 11th house, where you're dealing more with your community, dealing more with your friends, you've got more energy being poured out into there. Mars squaring Neptune is kind of saying, what idealism are you holding that, these other people have? The 8th house is what other people have. What ideas or expectations do you have about what these other people have that you're not seeing with your energy being involved with them? And I think that's going to be important in seeing what your expectations are for pouring energy into these friends, into these networks, into these groups of people. So as Mars squares Neptune on the 26th, definitely be aware of what expectations that you're holding on to, what your actions are going to manifest into. And I think it's just going to be a good thing to not get so involved, not involved, but not so emotionally invested into whatever it is you've got going on in that area. And then the last two things that we've got going on is Pluto's retrograding on April 26th. Not the biggest deal in the world, but I did want to mention it only because the South Node's going to be going over Pluto for about the whole month. And Pluto, it's been, house is that for you guys? It's been in your 6th house now for ever. And Pluto, this planet of, big change of fear and destruction going on. It has a lot to do with where our fears and anxieties can be placed. The South Node's going over Pluto over this time in your sixth house of, again, your work, your routine, your habits, your health, what you're doing, your service to this world. And as the South Node's going over Pluto for this next, little while, especially this month, this is going to be a big time of releasing that fear around this stuff and releasing. It's kind of like, shit's falling apart. You can't be scared about it anymore because it's happening, and it's time to step away from that. It's time to go. It's kind of like being if you're in an earthquake and you can feel the house collapsing. Don't just stand there scared. Like, get out of the house and then watch it fall. You know what I mean? And to where you could be safer. Now, Pluto will be stationing retrograde, not a big deal, but then a couple days later, the last thing on April 30th, we have the South Node going over Saturn. At this time, Saturn and Pluto are going to be really close to each other. And Saturn, a lot of the time, looks like limitations, walls, barriers. It says no to a lot of things. And as Saturn's been in Capricorn in your sixth house, it's like, man, it's hard to get your health being addressed. You're having problems with your schedule and what you're doing every single day. Maybe you're having struggle being employed, or if you have employees, you're having problems with them. The South Node going on top of Saturn is kind of like, let's take these walls and limitations and let's not use them for that anymore. Like, rather than having these barriers that can hold us back, let's use that as foundational support to elevate us. The Saturn is about construction. Saturn is about efficiency and effectivity. It's about lessons and maturity. And as it's going through your sixth house, you have to apply these things every single day. And the South Node is kind of like, I'm tired of looking this as a limitation, a barrier. I need to use this as support. It's kind of like being backed into a wall versus climbing the wall and getting out of whatever situation you're in. So that's my advice with with South Node going over Saturn, especially as it comes super close to Pluto. And that's what's going on in April. That's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching and liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next month.